Welcome back to another Touchpoint Group Banking App Insights session. In this particular session, we are looking at the Australian market and the performance of the major banks over the year for 2023. And we're very lucky to have the country manager, Ritesh Bissoy, with us. And he is going to be handing out some awards for the top performing banks and also some subcategories highlighting the areas that we look at that really make a difference in that banking app performance. Ritesh, over to you, my friend, and it's probably a good chance to kick off just explaining the criteria that we look at and explain that engaged customer score, which is so critical.
Great to be here, and obviously we've been tracking the data for the last year to see, what are customers really saying relative to how their experiences with the app. So there's a way that we actually categorize this data. So we look at the feedback coming through. We apply a framework which is related to digital experience in particular. So we look at things that are all relatively important to mobile banking. So we focus on things like security and usability of the app. Then there is the authentication component, reliability, and then the functions and sort of features, the new features that you're building into the app to create that really positive experience. And then there is a metric which is tied to all of this, which sort of measures performance, and we refer to that as the engaged customer score. And just very quickly for everyone, what the engaged customer score essentially is anyone who has provided feedback on the experience with the app. We take their feedback and the rating, right? So this data comes from the iOS App Store and Android, and it's unprompted feedback. So it's a really good way to capture the sentiment from customers.
Fantastic.
Great.
Shall we rip into it?
Very excited, Glenn. So just to announce the winner of this year. So the best overall app goes to NAB, and NAB has done a really good job across the year and sort of being very steady and making improvements with their app. This is then followed by the digital native app for ANZ, which is ANZ Plus. So ANZ Plus was launched recently, and they're just sort of bringing on customers onto the platform. So it's good to see. Obviously, that's having really positive experience for customers for ANZ. Followed by CBA, and then we've got Westpac, who sort of make up the last component in terms of the big four banks. And just as we look at the trends across the year, and we can see actually at the start of the year, it was pretty close between the big four, but we can see that there's been that steady improvement from the NAB app over the first 6 months of the year, and then they sort of continued on that trend. So that's why they have come in first place. We've seen ANZ Plus obviously really started off with a bang at the start of the year, and peaked in April, but they did have some reliability issues, which has caused that sort of fluctuation. So they weren't able to kind of maintain that first place. CBA is another one which I know the guys at CBA would be following this closely. They had a major upgrade to the UI of the app in April earlier this year, and we can see that there's been a slight sort of decline post that period. The good news for CBA is that from July onwards, they've managed to address a lot of those UI related issues, and they're sort of back in the hunt in terms of being top four. And lastly, obviously Westpac started the year well and sort of peaked in June, but since then the reliability and technical issues have plagued the Westpac app, and you can kind of see their performance deteriorate for the back end of last year. So furthermore, we can then sort of break this down into the different categories that we've got. As I mentioned to you previously around security and authentication, and that's where ANZ Plus is the winner. So they perform the best in this area. Best UI and design goes to NAB. So the NAB guys will be pleased to see that. And we can see from a reliability perspective, CBA has done quite well. And although Westpac had some issues with the app in the back end of last year, they've done well in terms of their functionality and the features that they've got in the app. So they're the winner across that category. We can dive into this in a little bit more detail, and here we can see the pain points that customers are talking about, right? So in this case, the higher the frequency, it's a bad thing. So you really want your the frequency of mentions for particular topics to be the lower the better, which means that your score would be higher. So again, that theme sort of plays through where we can see that NAB has, in general, done quite well in terms of a lot of the fundamental stuff, like being able to log into the app. We saw that they had strengthened their design and UI. And we can see that obviously from Westpac's perspective, obviously there's areas for improvement in reliability and stability, and particularly in the authentication aspect of the mobile app. Now, these aspects are critical for a really good user experience. So I refer to as like having your shop open for business, right? So if customers can't get in to the app when they need to do something important, pay bills or transfer funds, that can create a lot of frustration. So it's a really important foundational piece that you need to address before you start investing in things like your UI and features and functionality. And we'll just wrap up by giving you a taste of some of the feedback that's coming through, because it's really important that we sort of look at what our customers saying when we're sort of thinking about how do we improve in 2024. And again, the theme in Australia, it really has been focusing on the foundational aspects of the app. So sort of the basic things like being able to log in, not having technical issues, and sort of making those journeys really seamless is going to really give us an idea of who's going to take the lead in 2024. So yeah, so that's a quick snapshot, Glenn, of what we're seeing in the data, and yeah, we've got a lot of feedback coming through, so it's really important to kind of look at these pieces.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, Ritesh, and really when we're tracking and measuring over 1 million pieces of feedback a year around the globe, and it really highlights, as you were saying, those foundational elements, and especially you can have the best design, the best user interface, and the best features, but if you can't get in or stay in because the authentication or the reliability isn't there, you can't get to experience all of those great things. So focusing on those fundamental foundations is fantastic. I really appreciate you taking the time to share that with us today. Congratulations to NAB for taking out the #1 spot. But it was also good to see there was a good, healthy spread in regards to where each of the banks really had strengths. So everyone's got a little something to work on. And it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out in 2024 as they invest more in ensuring their app creates great experiences.
Exactly. And it's good to see that close competition as well. I think healthy competition is good for the industry in general.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Well, thanks once again. And if you're wanting to have a chat to us to get a deeper dive in regards to the performance of your banking app, feel free to reach out to Ritesh in Australia or me for anywhere else in the globe. Have a great one.